a daddy Mac. Dan's 30 years got our way, trading life and markets every day. Rusty's chained to the mines, digging deep day by day. But when Option Omega releases new features, he's free to come out and play option. Omega, you're trading home, where every move makes you feel less alone.
I've got to fix that where it just cold cuts out every morning. It's the worst outro I've ever heard in my life. Anyway, morning, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. Dan, good
morning,
to see
Troy.
you.
Morning, everybody.
The good news, there's good news and bad news. The good news is there was no nuclear attacks overnight.
Was that the rumor, or was that the?
Well, you know, Iran said that they were going to give Israel a present that will be remembered for centuries. And
they say that,
yeah.
Oh,
I think they gave him like a keychain or something. It was a, you know,
but
they're like that.
Don't you think
like that
Troy,
terrible uncle?
Don't you think there's been a lot of WWE, WWF stuff going back? I mean, President Trump said a few things like we've got, we own
the skies.
Your last chance, or
we own the skies of Iran.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like, come on, guys. I mean, you're no.
So yeah, I mean, so that's the good news.
Yeah.
The bad news is, I was positioned for a nuclear attack.
There we go. That's what I wanted to hear. Troy was positioned.
So not,
Troy was that's a great statement. Troy was positioned for nuclear. Could you share maybe just a little hint what that kind of John Wayne statement meant? That Duke was ready.
It's over. There's no secret. I mean, it's an open secret to tail hedging, which is you try to buy stuff that seems nonsensical for cheap. And so I will just I'll throw out the number of one of the things I have, which is to show you the point of it.
One of the many arrows.
Yeah. I've got a couple missiles of different sizes and variations, but I've got the December 19th 150 strike in SPY. Okay, so you think to yourself,
what's the delta of that? 2 or 3?
One. I mean, okay. One. Yeah. I mean, it's, and people say to yourself, they say that's never going to happen. We're never going to go down to 150. And we've said this for a long time now, but with hedging, you don't have to. That's the beauty of options. You don't have to go down to 150 for it to have a massive payoff.
Yeah. See, people are missing. It's like a substitute for VIX. You're
100%.
Buying those puts. They're never going to probably come near the strike, but it has nothing to do with price movement. It has to do with if VIX pops 10, 20, 30 points, those things are going to become, that's the wonderful thing about that is that you're right. You can, and what did you pay for those? Maybe did you even pay per contract were they like,
we're looking right now like 13 to 14 bucks, 13, 14 cents a contract.
Yeah. I mean, when you think it's like a penny stock, right?
It is. But see, that's the beauty of it. It's a penny stock that actually has a higher probability of hitting than a penny stock. That's the way I look at it. Because the vol.
Well, and that's it. And you don't care about the price. You just want, and as you said, to spend a little bit of insurance. Let's say you bought 100 of them, right, for $1,300.
Let's just say.
Yeah, let's just say, right? Let's just say Troy spent, X on them. All you need is it was some type of nuclear, even if it wasn't the big kahuna, I mean, VIX would be at 40 quicker than you can say Pringles potato chip, right? And you say, Troy, how you doing? I'm out, right? I'm out. So I think it's genius in terms of, because that's the whole thing with the tails curve, and in the pit, it was strictly. That's why guys in the 87 crash, when the market went down, a lot of guys in stocks, a lot of guys, that was their best month in their career. And you say, why? Picture like I knew a guy, I think you ever see that TD Ameritrade show during the day? It's kind of like Tasty Live.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a guy, I think his name's Kevin Hinkle. Wonderful guy. He was a trader in the pits for years. And I think it was Walmart or, whatever stock. It doesn't matter which stock it was. But because they all got, in the 87 crash, they all went down, right? So these guys were loaded up, usually they were in these big backspread positions. I'll explain in a second, because the order flow is always selling calls. Walmart would just, these stocks would go up every day in the 80s and they just sell, a lot of call sellers. Well, who's the guys who bought all these calls? So the market makers would be long thousands of these things, calls, and let's call it a 30 delta. So you're long 1,000 calls at a 30 delta. What's your hedge? You sell 30,000 shares of stock. So when Walmart or whatever stock in the 87 crash opens down, right, on a ratio backspread, let's say you were 3-to-1 ratio, long 3 calls for every short 100 shares of stock, the calls immediately go to zero and you're short 30,000 shares of stock. So then it goes down, you're short all these deltas. So what are they doing? They're buying, they sold 30,000 shares up at, I'm just making up a price here, $60, and they buy it back at 30,000 shares. And that's the ratio backspread, which is similar when you look at it like a reverse iron condor, is very similar. It's a long gamma negative theta trade that gets you short deltas on the way up, long deltas on the way up. But I like these, for a retail trader, Troy, I appreciate you sharing with everybody one of your arrows that you have, because it's, that's the lesson. Wouldn't you agree, Troy? That's the lesson retail traders learn to know, is that they'll say, well, I'm buying this put so far out of the money in SPY, it'll never get there. But they're missing this. This is about vol, right? And when they think of Troy, they have to think of vol. They have to think of volatility as the key.
And I name these things. Israel names their protection systems like Iron Dome.
Oh, I love those.
David Sling. So I try to name these things like, and I try to as well use biblical things. I'll say like Troy's talking donkey.
Oh yeah.
Troy's fig tree. Yeah. Like lots of different analogies. What you don't want, and may it never be the case, because we're not fans of nuclear war, but may it never be the case that Troy one morning says, we flip the good news, bad news, and I say, the good news, Daddy just made $15,000 overnight. The bad news, there was a nuclear war.
Yeah, that's
not what we're looking.
No.
Yeah. We're not. I would need at least 25,000.
Yeah.
Before we could anyway.
See, that's okay then. That's okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's a line. There's a line. So, Dan, I'm gonna repeat this here in a minute, but for those who are in the chat and everybody this morning, I've got some bad news. So, I said yesterday we're going to try to do a live show. Maybe we do a live show today. But then I proceeded to not do anything logistically in my life that would allow me to do that. So we're not going to be able to do that today. I've got some meetings this afternoon that I can't miss. So we're going to do that the next FOMC. And to be honest, I mean, listen, this isn't financial advice. Some people love trading FOMC. There's a lot of other stuff going on besides FOMC in the world. Mm-hmm. And I wonder how much vol is going to come out at 2:30, 3 o'clock. A lot of people sell premium in these FOMC days. I just don't know how much long dated vol is going to. We have a holiday tomorrow. It's just a weird week. You know?
That's the answer. Don't you think that's maybe the answer, Troy, with that cloud of Israel, Iran out there? That would be enough. How low could, VIX is going to be somewhere in the 21-ish area as we open, right? And is it really going to go under 20 much with the holiday and Powell? Not that, and I think it's more. I don't think Powell. I mean, what is it? 100% or almost that they're not gonna lower the rates.
No, I don't think
they're
going to do
scheduled to.
Yeah, and so yeah, I agree. And next point, tomorrow we won't have a show in the morning because it's Juneteenth and markets are closed. And so I was telling Dan before, you'll never see traders more sad than when it's a holiday and or the weekend, every weekend, because you get addicted to this stuff. I was telling him, I heard someone say when George Bush Sr. died, I saw somebody make a comment, because they closed the market for the funeral. It said, he was a Republican. He would have wanted us to trade, which is,
oh yeah. Well,
so
yeah, I was going to say, we've got a student guy I know, his name's Tom, and he's a big New York Mets fan. He's from New York. And so he was going to spring training in New York. And you would think, okay, that's a vacation. I'll go to wherever in Florida to watch the Mets for 2 weeks with his brother. But he goes, what's great about it, Dan? I get in an Airbnb. I've got my 3 computers. I got it all set up and I just trade all day or until a game. So it's not like these days with vacations. It's like, oh no, I'm still, you wouldn't think of getting rid of trading or something like that. But
no, I agree. I mean, I think, so for all those who are sad about that, move to your online gambling. There's baseball games tomorrow. There's tons of odds that you can pick up. Shout out Rob Maria. Rob, I'll get back to you. Sorry, I've really sucked this week at every logistical thing I needed to do. Which final bad news, Troy, thing that I'm really bad at logistics on is I wanted tonight to be the premiere of Options with the Boys, but then I realized that YouTube is going to just take some time for a 7 gig video. This is a 7 gig video that we're uploading. Yeah, so as soon as it's available, we will launch the premiere of Option with the Boys. But the good news, if you stick around for this show, the next 15 minutes, at the end of the show, to hype it up, I will play you the intro of the Options with the Boys series.
Excited.
I'm excited.
I know I know that most of the boys, and I'm very excited because this is a cast of characters. I mean, these are characters.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are completely new to trading. Some people who bought stocks, and then some people who have gambled for a long, long time. So it's a good mix. You'll never guess who picked it up faster. But anyway, so we'll play that. I did wake my wife up at 1 this morning when I finished it to show her, and she was
thrilled.
Not happy. Not happy. Anyway, so here we go, Dan. We've been talking about a 728 trade.
Yeah,
a DC. Be honest, fellas, I could not improve on that much. So I've got another one for you. As a DJ Khalid would say, bam, another one. So here we go.
DJ Khalid.
Can you see this, Dan?
Yes.
Okay. So to continue this idea of longer dated trades, which is hilarious to me, Dan, because I think in 2018, would you have said 10 days is a longer dated trade? I feel like a couple years ago it was like 30 days, 40 days.
That's a good point. Yeah, that 10 days up until a couple years ago would have been the shortest duration I would go. Now it's, pretty,
ancient. It's ancient. Yeah. So this is a 1028. So we move some stuff around. And again, I always caveat this because there is always someone who immediately puts these on. And I ask that you do your own research before you do that. Let me see real quick. Okay. So what this is this is a 15 delta shorts for 10 days. So you sell the 10-day strangle, 15 delta, and you buy the 28 days of the same strike. And you open this trade daily. It's windy here, so if you hear a bunch of beautiful chimes, just enjoy it. Let it ride. Don't overthink it. Yeah, that's right, Tom. Anything over 7 days is a leap. So,
it's a leap. I like that. It's a leap.
Yeah. So this is opened at 144, and it's one contract because it's a small account challenge, and it's pretty simple. You exit the trade at 2:45 the day of expiration, and you exit the call and put if it goes 5 points in the money, either direction. Okay, beforehand. The min short long ratio on this is 0.3. And so you're trying to get a little juice. You want a little bit of juice for that. So, Dan, initial thoughts on this DC?
Oh, I like it. I like it a lot. I mean, for a couple, again, if you said to me, would I have liked it more last week? I know this is Qs, but when VIX was lower, right? So 28 versus 10, get a little more long Vega, right? So I'd like to be more comfortable with the vol, from a volatility perspective, right? Because there's a little more, when you have 18 days between the long and the short, a little more long Vega, but this isn't bad, especially in lieu of, do we think the vol is going to get destroyed here? Probably not, in the next period of time. But the other thing I like is when you set it up at like a 15 delta here, you're giving up some of the middle of the graph. What you say, I know I'm more familiar with SPX than Q, but you're giving up some of the middle to say, hey, I want more wing. I want more.
That's right.
I want more room. And people people sometimes will look at these double trades and say, well, your middle is sagging too much. That's not a problem. If you want more, two things. If you're comfortable with the volatility levels, sag in the middle is okay because you're getting more room. If you want higher in the middle, less sag, well, you're going to have to bring your shorts in. Do you want to do that? So I like in the market we're in now, we've been pretty range bound overall, and to have some room. If I were to put, I like this trade. I mean, I like, and you know what I like? Again, for me, it's always going to come down to any trade for me is going to look at the risk management. And, any double calendar, when you look at when does trouble exist generally, right? And I'm looking more price movement. Volatility, yes, I get it. And that's why you have the long short ratio. But from a price, any kind of double calendar, double diagonal is when you go through the short strikes and those shorts become in the money. That's when problems happen, right? And so exit when call tested or when put tested by 5 points, that's where you want to focus. I mean, if I was going to test anything, I'm always looking at the risk management. You can play with it, and I'm sure Troy did. Do you do it -5, -3, -2, -7? Earlier in the trade, in any double calendar, you don't want it going through the short strike.
Right.
Like an hour after you put it on.
For sure.
But as time develops, you can handle the heat. You can handle more. So, I mean, that's always something you can play with. So, no, I think it's a solid trade. I mean, and again, anytime you have a 15 delta, you're going to have a decent win percentage, right? And this thing's, $600-700 trade, which is, I mean, it's kind of, for a small account, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, you can, and again, we talked about this yesterday. You want to test sequence risk. So run this, I shared the test. So run this with 100% allocation. Run this with more money in your account to where you could put infinite amount of these on to see what it would do. I'm not going to do that right now, but you have the test and do it. Stephen made a great point. You might want to add a VIX filter to see if vol's been going down in the process of this. Absolutely. That's something you guys could do. I'm not automating these. I'm not automating the 728 and 1028 yet because I think you guys probably can improve these. And so let me do this real quick too. while I do that, I'm going to go ahead and share this one again in the chat so that you guys can.
That's this trade.
Yeah. So you the ones we've been looking at, and then the 1028, and play around with it. And the cool thing about DCs, I mean, you go into it and you say, well, vol, I'm going to be so long Vega, but DCs are more complicated than that. And so a lot of times you could stack this. In my mind, you could stack a 728 and a 1028, and that's going to give you different deltas. It's going to give you different range. And we've talked about this before, where it's not a traditional hedge, but you've kind of got a bigger tent, a bigger sag in the middle, but also a bigger tent of profit. And so you could run those two in a portfolio. We might look at that tomorrow and just see what it would look like to size it up a little bit. But man, Rusty and I were talking the other day. I really like these longer dated DCs.
Yeah.
You just don't worry a lot, you know.
Right. Well, and that's a good point. You're diversifying your price risk a bit, right? If you have some 1, 2, 3 day stuff on, and then you have a little bit of this. And the other thing I was just thinking, Troy, is people play with this. I'm thinking, okay, more used to SPX. You wouldn't think of SPX doing this type of trade in SPX. You think it'd be too expensive, but I would like to look at just if you go 3 wide on the distance between your short call and long call, or short put and long put. If you have 3 wide in SPX, that will cut it down, right?
Diagonalize it a little bit.
No, just have like usually in a calendar, I might go 5 to 10, 7 points between the long and the short, the duration between the long and the short.
I see what you're saying.
But if you go 3 wide on a double calendar, like something like this, 10 versus 28 in SPX, 3 wide would keep, I'm guessing it would be under 1,000. I could be wrong.
Yeah. But, and there's definitely trades like that maybe we'll look at that tomorrow, is maybe look at SPX, because there's definitely ways to do it with SPX. The problem is, it doesn't take, I mean, for instance, this is going to be to Dan's point, this is going to be a $6,000, $7,000 trade, $8,000 trade. The 728 is going to be $10,000, and so what you can do, what he said is like, you reduce the time between the time spreads, and that's going to make it cheaper. It changes the profile a little bit. You're less theta. You lose theta a little bit, but what you're gaining from that is it's just a cheaper trade to put on. And so then you look at maybe taking profit, maybe you let the profit ride a little bit. It's a completely different trade, but it's worth looking at. So maybe we'll look at that tomorrow.
Hey, Troy, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
When do you and like Matt and Rusty and others in the community look at, from a risk management on double calendars, when do you kind of look at, okay, exit when call or put tested -5 each side, which is 5 points, right? And you can do that in SPX also, right? Which is fine, which is a very good rail or risk management technique. Versus when would you say, hey, I'm going to connect it with the delta of my short? You can do the same thing and say, when the delta of my short starts hitting 60 or set, when do you, what have you in your back testing these things? Do you use more when call tested? Do you use more the delta of the short? They're both kind of similar. What's your thoughts on
that's a good
rails?
That's a good question. I'm agnostic towards it. Really, I kind of just let the data drive it. And so
that's a good point.
I haven't tested that. So please guys, take this, run some deltas, see if you can improve it, because we have seen in the past that deltas on the short legs is a good stop as well. Maybe in addition to the put tested, or maybe in lieu of the put tested.
Interesting.
Call tested.
Because they're both going after the problem, right? When they get in the money, when the shorts get in the money on a DC, problems can occur, especially earlier in the trade. But I was just wondering if people have tested, if they've But you're right. Ultimately, the answer, I think, which you hit it, is the data will drive it. But I wonder if, like, a go-to when people are testing, would their first choice, hey, I'm going to try this, would they go with exit when call tested -5 or +5, or would they go to when the delta, if we start here with a delta 15, when it starts hitting 16 or 17, anyway.
We have some astute traders. And so I would say, like, if you're learning options, if you're new to this, and the small account challenge means you're new, and it might not mean you're new. One of the things I would start with is something like this, especially if you're not automating it, because
easier, maybe.
It's just a lot easier to watch.
Yeah, Delta's tougher. Yeah,
Delta's a tougher concept to get, and so I think if you understand deltas, it's a very powerful concept, and I would argue, I've said this before, I learned via Dan, teaching me. He had a course, shout out SheridanRiskManagement.com. He has a course called Trading by the Greeks, and your analogy in my mind is this is when you get your pilot's license. Your first pilot license is you can fly up to a certain altitude, right? But then the next phase is to get your instrument license. And your instrument license allows you to trade without, you can go higher because you're depending on instruments besides sight. Yeah. And I think you've used that analogy, and I think that's a great analogy for this. This is the low altitude version of this. You can see it.
Yeah.
We're past it.
Yeah. And you bring up an interesting point, Troy, that, when you do back testing, especially when you have such a good tool, like
you're talking about world class.
Yeah, I had to get. Yeah, I know. That was, man, it'd be like, what do you mean it's just a good tool?
It's just a bunch of drunk guys in the morning taking shots every time we say something.
But when you think about it, think about these tests. You're doing these tests for the most part, not without the great, but you're just, hey, testing, this is the data. And people, when you have such a good tool, a world-class back tester that can do that, it's great. But I think if a student really wants to be a better back tester, right, or better trader, it does help. It's a little more work to understand the Greeks a bit, right? It took me, I still am learning on the Greeks. It's a confusing, but in the pit, most, I get meme for that, don't I?
When you were in the pit.
When I was in the pit, I'll tell Tom right away, because Tom he'll have a good. I love Tom. Yeah. He has some good ones. In the pits, it's like when somebody in the house. There used to be basketball leagues in the house.
Yeah.
But in the pits, because people made decisions based on volatility most of the time. Most pit traders were volatility traders, not so much technicals. Because of that, you were just taught that way, right? It's not, it's like being taught, kids are taught, spelling a certain way, right? And when you change it, right, you're taught by phonics. And now, different ways these days they teach it. So I just think the Greeks help. Can you get by the Greeks? Get by without the Greeks? Yes. But, as I said, I was in the Discord, Options Omega Discord a little bit last week, watching and just getting used to some of the guys. And I'll tell you, the guys that are really good in there with the Tom, Izzy, and a lot of the guys that are expert at the back testing, they're just as good with Greeks. And they're very, they understand the Greeks. I think they come I think you can go so far with a back testing tool if you don't have some experience, the practical, the forward testing, that what do these Greeks mean? Because you can do better at these tests. I don't think you're going to become a phenomenal. I think you have limits as a back tester if you don't understand the Greeks.
I'll tell you this is my nerd story, but to the point where I do think it's really important. And I've contributed about 2% of what the backtester has become, because the community has driven a lot of it. But I will say, I think it was my idea to put deltas in there, because I think when I bought Robinhood, I used Robinhood 8-9 years ago, and I switched out from I use Tasty normally. I switched out for a semester because what I wanted to do at the time, they didn't have Greeks. And so
Robinhood
what I
didn't have any Greeks, really?
No, back then, I think. And what I would do is I would buy cheap straddles, and I would try to learn to calculate them based on the prices. I tried to work out Black-Scholes myself, and I literally had a little note app that throughout the day I was adjusting the Greeks myself as they went, just to learn it, because I think it's really important. I mean, it's like a pilot's license. I think if you can have a position and you don't have to look at a graph, you can just see 5 inputs and know how you're doing, and knowing how you need to adjust, if you need to adjust at all, if you need to exit. It informs your back testing as well, because all that is you're putting it on the front end, what you need to do, you know?
Yeah. And having a good graph can go a long way. I mean, a lot of times with beginners, I won't even go near the Greeks for 3 months. It just, hey, look at the graph. Let's just play this simple. We stay in the profit area. That's good. We go outside it, Houston, we got a problem. But I think when you think about it, what I like, and I'll just leave with the options Omega, because when you think about it, what are your 2 risks on any of these trades? Range bound, price and vol, price and vol. And what does price risk involve? Delta and gamma. What does vol risk involve? Vega. So a lot of your rails you have rails price movement. Okay, exit if call tested by 5. Exit when delta moves X amount. That's price risk. Volatility, how many, and I never, use it as much as you guys, and I'm using it more now. Okay, I'm going to do a long double calendar when VIX is a minimum lower at the opening. Those are sound principles, right? Traders would rather do long Vega when vols are lower, right? Doesn't mean you can't, if you think vol's going to just keep escalating, jump on the train at a higher volatility. But just those things, that's using the Greeks as rails. So the rails that you guys have, I would call it risk management, are based on that you have it tied to price and vol. Those are your 2 risks. If you had rails and you didn't touch on price and vol, I'd be like, what are we missing here?
Yeah, no, I agree. Dan VI, with the DC, would it be a good option to give the put side some more room for exit? Then if you're a subscriber, you can definitely test it, take the test and run with it. The short answer is, there's put skew most of the time when most of these underlyings. And so the deltas are going to be a little bit different. So you could definitely test it and see. I don't know the clear answer on it. It's going to be test dependent for sure. But I've seen plenty of tests where you let the put side go a little bit longer, or in the case of like a butterfly, you give more room to the call side. So there's different ways to do it and structure it. So that, listen, we could talk about it all day, and we will. I've given you 2 tests, send them Juneteenth, celebrate obviously with your family, the new holiday, but don't forget your real family, the Option Omega family. So do your back testing and, show me the improvements, and we'll talk about them Friday. And so, listen, I made a promise that I wanted to get you guys hyped up. And I want to show you the intro to Options with the Boys.
I love it.
And I want to preempt this. You can be a lady and get something out of this new class. So it's not just for the boys, but it kind of is for the boys, if it makes sense. So technically you can, I think a lady could get it, but I think it's for the boys. So anyway, I'm going to premiere the intro for it. Hopefully this gets you hyped up. And even if you're completely an options legend already, you will watch it. So are you guys ready for the premiere of the Options with the Boys video?
I'm excited.
Okay, here we go.
Welcome back to Options with the Boys. Welcome back. We trade QQ and sometimes SPY. We aim for the moon, but don't ask us why. SPX2, it's big and it's fast. We place our trades, then pray they last. We talk like we know what theta means, while eating cold wings and counting our greens. Delta, gamma, they're part of the lore. We nod real slow, then Google some more. Buy the dip, sell the rip, miss the top, then double dip. Sometimes we hedge, most times we don't. Say we'll cut losses, but we won't. No suits, no rules, no Bloomberg noise, just half-baked trades and regular boys.
Breathtaking.
Listen,
Breathtaking.
if I contribute one thing to the options industry, this was my gift. This was my Picasso. I put everything I had into it.
Troy, I'm focusing on that, but you know, it's like my thoughts kept getting distracted. It's like I'm seeing, were Troy's sweatpants in this picture, were they above the belly button? Were they, I mean, so I was trying to stay focused on all of it, and then you'd bring another picture with those. That was great. The sweatpants was good.
Listen, I've told Melissa this. She doesn't like it. My wife, beautiful wife. There is not a better feeling in the world than it being fall. It's a little chilly in Knoxville, Tennessee, and you tuck your sweatshirt in. You tuck your hoodie in.
I do it all.
I'm just gonna say it's a move that I did when I'm in my 20s, and it's certainly not getting less now that I'm in my 40s. So
it's a good move. I like it. I'm looking forward to that. Was a good intro. Good.
Thank you. So yeah, I will let you guys know when the premiere is coming out, when YouTube decides to process that big file. Yeah. So anyway, guys, listen, have a great trading day. Stay safe. If you're going to trade any FOMC stuff, just understand, you know, if it's your first time trading FOMC and you say, oh, this is an event and you can sell premium to these events, and then the premium will come out and it's an easy win. Go back and look, I believe it was December 18th of last year. What can happen when Jay Powell says something that the market doesn't like?
Well, and you're coming into Thursday's a day off.
That's right.
You come back one day and then you have a 2-day weekend. And yeah, it's not that you can't. I mean, if you have something well thought out, and again, the thing that comes in, never think that, okay, I shouldn't do anything. Size, right? If you normally might consider a $2,000 trade, can you do a $500 trade?
That's right.
Or a Troy special.
Oh yeah.
You buy 13-cent SPY out of the money put, and spend $50. So the dollar amount is key.
Dollar amount is key. That is probably what we should say every show. So, all right, guys, listen, have a great rest of your day, and we will see you Friday morning.